I got to the Bellagio way too early. Way too early. Normally, if there isn't an overnight game going, which I figured there would be since we are technically still within the March Madness window, a game normally starts around 7 a.m. This day, nothing. No one. There was a 1-3 game going, but I passed on it. Instead, I grabbed some overpriced Starbucks and waited. Coffee Cam, what's up? It's too damn early in the morning is what it is. Got down here too early. If you don't know, I'm in front of the Bellagio. It's a little bit before 7 on a Thursday. I think it's March 28th. And there's no game going on. There's no overnight game. So you know what we're doing? We're drinking overpriced coffee and we're going to wait it out. That's the plan so far. About 45 minutes later, the game started three-handed, and suddenly, I couldn't make a pair or hit a draw. Fun. I was down a few $100s before the table eventually began to fill up. Side note, I accidentally adjusted my camera setting on my phone, so the aspect ratio is a bit off on this vlog. So if the footage looks a little grainy, that's why. It happens. The table is not yet full, so this hand is six-handed. The cutoff opens to $30 and the small blind calls. Ace-Jack offsuit in the big blind? Sure, okay. Call. I quickly see a 4 and 2 jacks. That's a decent flop. The small blind checks and I do as well. The cutoff continues for $20, the small blind folds, and I slide in a call. The king of diamonds hits the turn, and I check. I expect there's a good chance he will bet here. I mean, that king is pretty good for him. I'm disappointed when he doesn't. The river 3 of diamonds will not get checked through. I lead for $40, he tosses in a call, sees my hand, and tosses his cards into the muck. Sometimes, due to the glare of seeing a great hand in a great starting position, I fail to see when the playing field has drastically changed and my chances of winning have dropped to near zero. In this one, I open ace-queen offsuit to $30 from the cutoff. A winning play. However, I get raised by one of the nittiest players in 3 counties to $90. When the action folds back around to me, I should just fold. But the blinding glare of ace-queen offsuit in the cutoff, coupled with the siren song of "You Could Flop Us Straight" ringing in my ears.
You could flop us straight. You could flop us straight.
I call. Out of position versus a super tight 3-better, I check. Not flopping a straight or an ace or a queen, in his half-pot c-bet, well, that just leads me to fold. Still playing short-handed, only now with the straddle on, I open to $50 with pocket aces first to act. The straddler, a high V-pipping gent from out of town, calls. 9-7-3 rainbow. His check sees me continue for $80. He calls. He checks the turn 8 of clubs, and from our limited past experience, he might fire big on the river if I check it back. So I check it back. The river bringing the jack of hearts, and thus a one-liner to a straight on board, isn't what I was hoping for. He elects not to fire this street either. Knowing that I checked back the turn, he most likely won't check the river here with the straight. I bet $100 on this river, hoping to get crying called by a smaller single pair type hand. All my unnecessary thinking, though, it gets me nowhere. He just folds. Another orbit passes and I find myself opening again with the straddler to my direct right. I make it $50 with King Jack offsuit. The big blind calls and there's zero chance the straddler is going anywhere. He gets in there too. The big blind checks dark. Queen 10-7 with 2 hearts. The straddler checks and I continue for 1/3 pot with my overcard and straight draw, but no pair. Only the big blind calls and follows that with a dark check. That move is so funny. Why do people do this? I don't normally do this on the vlog, but here's some high-level elite poker advice. Do yourself a favor. Stop doing this stupid shit.
Stop it. Get some help.
The turn 3 of hearts now adds the second nut flush draw to my king high nothing. I could bet here, but getting raised would be disastrous. I check. The river brings the 5 of spades, and now our villain checks like a normal human. Unfortunately, my once potentially great hand is now not much to look at. But with some pressure, I could easily get him to fold his ace-high hands and maybe even small pocket pairs. I release $160 into the middle, and that works. The low jack opens to $40, and I find the 3-bet from the hijack to $110 holding pocket queens. When everyone else flees, only the low jack is left. He calls. Ace 9 ace rainbow. He checks and I continue very small, $20. He calls. The turn jack is kinda meh. He checks and I can go either way with this one. He does have some jacks he'd be willing to call with, and he also has a lot of nothings he might lead river with if I don't bet here. I check it back. The river brings a second jack and he checks again. I think for a second and quickly deduce that I'm not getting called by anything I can beat at this point. I say check, he says tens, and mucks when my cards hit their backs. Following the queens, I pick up ace deuce suited in the low jack and open to $50 in a straddled pot. Only the straddler calls. Jack 4-7 rainbow. He checks and I see bet for $80, mostly to charge the abundance of draws that he can have here. He calls. The turn ace sees him check again. Well, I have showdown value now. I check. The river ace elevates my hand to super showdown power. And he checks a third time. Now it's time for me to turn my hand into what may appear to be a bluff to him. I bet $200. This villain is a thinking player and knows that I wouldn't be betting a jack here, and it's damn hard to have an ace at this point, as a lot of the aces would have bet the flop and even less aces would check the turn. So I have to be bluffing, right? He thinks about it and eventually makes the right decision. Damn it. Oh look, queens again. The under the gun player opens to $10 and mandatory raise incoming. I make it $40 only to be asked to catch a $150 4-bet from the small blind. The under the gun player folds and the small blind raising to that size this deep makes this call pretty trivial. King Jack 10 rainbow. This flop, well, it's actually pretty good. Not just for my hand, which now has a straight draw, but also for my range, as I can technically have 3 different sets here, whereas the small blind potentially really only has 1, and I have all the different 2-pair combinations. He doesn't. He continues for $100, and I call. The turn 4 heart should be a blank. He bets again, this time for $230. And I call. The river pairs the 4 and he checks. But that board pairing river dissuades me from doing much, as now my 2-pair combinations just got counterfeited. I check it back knowing that my chance of winning is slim, and I lose this one to... Yeah, go for it. Like I just play my hand and then the hand's over. Like it's like it doesn't.
Even if they add the answer.
You know what bothers me more than slow rolling is when people take an inordinate amount of time, like pre-flop. Like pre-flop, I'm just like, oh my god. But like once the hand is over, like I don't care.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they say that. I mean, she's got a shuffle, she's got a deal. Like it takes time anyway. Like pre-flop is like the easiest street. Like what are you thinking about? Right. Yeah. All right. I mean, main event, final table. Okay, take your time. Whatever. You got to think about things. Right.
Hold up, wait a minute, who's that? Got the whole room looking at you. Wanna know who they're looking at? Primo a la mode, who's that? Who's that? Sweet honey boom bastard. Showed up and now everyone's asking that. Look now, who's that? Oh wow, look now, who's that? That one looking so fresh, so cool, so confident. People wanna know, who's that? Who's that? Who's that? Hold up, wait a minute, who's that? Looking so stylish, all original and effortless. Presto, gotta know who's that? Who's that? Dynamo bombastic. Now go.
The straddle is back on, and I open Queen Jack of Hearts to $50 and get 3-bet to $200 from the small blind. Remember that hand I played earlier in the vlog with Ace Queen offsuit that I should have just folded pre-flop? Well, the small blind here is the same type villain from that hand. He's just moved seats. In other words, my Queen Jack of Hearts is pretty dead against his small blind 3-betting range. So you might think I just folded. Wrong. I call because I'm dumb. Heads up, I get super lucky and catch the 9-8-5 with 2 spades board. He leads for $150 directly into a board that smacks my open calling range in the face. Tight or not, I know that I can move him off his hand on this board, even if he has aces. I call the $150. Things go from bad to worse for him when the turn 6 of clubs falls and he wisely checks. This board is just too good not to bet turn and bomb the river. I bet $230 and he goes into the tank for a while. And folds. He would later say that he did, in fact, have aces.
Look now, who's that? Oh wow, look now, who's that? That one looking so fresh, so cool, so confident. People wanna know, who's that? Who's that?
So today's game, kind of meh. I mean, I don't know what's going on. It's March Madness weekend, and yet it's not feeling very madness-like in there. Game started late, 3-handed. I lost about $500 in the 3-handed version, but quickly recouped it once we got to like the 6 or 7-handed version. Nothing's really going on. Nothing's happening. I got a bluff through with Queen Jack of Hearts. I lost the pot with pocket queens. Just meh. So, as I record this, I think I'm up like $120. So let's hope for the second half of this session, we get something going on. This one, the under the gun player limps in, and I race to $40 from the hijack with pocket 9s. The cutoff calls, the small blind calls, and the limping under the gun player comes along as well. 9-7-6 with 2 hearts. Well, this is interesting. The small blind and under the gun player check, and I continue for $100 on this very dynamic, straightening, and flushy board. The cutoff in the small blind fold pretty quickly. The under the gun player doesn't. In fact, he does the opposite. He check raises to $250. What is this? So he limp called preflop and is now check raising this board? Pocket 6s and pocket 7s instantly come to mind. I could bet 3-bet this board, but he might then fold his flush draws. I don't necessarily want that. Plus, he could just have 10-8. Believe it or not, this particular gentleman may limp call preflop with 10-8. So I just call. The turn 10 of spades is a nightmare. I didn't really think about the high number of cards that could fall on the turn and make my life hell. This is one of them. I expect the under the gun player to now check, and I'm wrong. He continues for $410. Ugh. What have I gotten myself into? I call. Please pair the board one time, but not with the 6 or a 7 or anything to give him quads. So please pair it with a 10, I guess? 8 of clubs on the river puts a straight on the board. Now the small blind moves all in. I don't lose too much realistically, so I call. He turns over 9-6 offsuit for a flopped top and bottom pair, and we chop. And you scoffed at me when I said he could have 10-8. I know you did. Go ahead. Apologize.
Gather, my young subjects, come hither and listen closely. Behold, as a lively tale unfolds upon the blue felt stage this eve. The under the gun player, with bravado, opens the wager with 30 coins, and lo, queens grace the hands of our hero once more. He, in turn, doth raise the stakes to 100, and the button, bold in countenance, dares to cold call. Do you have a question, young Rampage? I mean, Ethan?
Is cold calling not bad, milady? Should not he just go all in for punishment maximum?
Oh, my sweet, sweet boy. Whilst I do respect your youthful exuberance, I do not believe a 300 big blind wager would be wise at this juncture.
Oh, okay. Is it because Vegas professionals are a bunch of nits?
Sit down, Ethan, so I may continue if you please. But alas, the original raiser, with a flourish, thrusts forth his entire treasury, a sum of 810, into the midst. My heart doth quicken at this part of the tale as our hero, in covering the button's stake, match his bid with all his own.
2 all-ins, 2 all-ins, yeah!
Yet the button, in a rueful moment, folds with a sigh. Upon the board, a tapestry unfolds, bearing the mark of King Jack 10, all bedecked in hearts. As our hero ponders his fate, the turn reveals a jack, twinned with the self-same moment he glances upon his cards, seeking the heart's emblem. Meanwhile, the under the gun player unveils a pair of aces, devoid of heart. At the river's brink, a 9 of hearts spills forth, painting the tableau with a flush of 4, yet, with no hearts to claim amongst the 2 adversarial hands, our hero, with a rivered straight, lay his claim to this bounty. And lo, the button, with a tale of woe, reveals his folded pair of 9s.
Hit the flop hard, huh? No?
River.
Oh, yeah? 9s?
Well, the board was paired, wasn't it?
Yeah. But yeah, it's different. Like if you call, that changes the action, and then the board's different. It changes the action.
As the spoils of this contest find refuge in our hero's coffers.
The hero did a suck out to win all the coins. The button should have did all in. This is not a bedtime story, milady. It's a nightmare.
The session is winding down, but I do have enough time to play this hand from the low jack. Open at $25 with ace-10 offsuit. The small blind calls, and then dark checks. Ace, ace, 8, rainbow. I continue for literally one big blind. He calls, and dark checks again. Are you seeing how silly this move is? The turn brings the 7 of spades. I bet $30 and he calls again, but no dark check this time. The river jack of diamonds does find him checking again though. I bet $60 and he folds, so I guess maybe he picked up a draw or something on the turn? Who knows?
Got a good day coming, and it's all I need. Everything I wanted is in front of me.
Okay, remember when I said I had things to do this afternoon? Well, I'm getting ready to go do those things. I guess I complained just enough to suck out on aces. So I sucked out on aces and I ended up the session a little over $900. But we still got the rest of the day ahead of us. So, if you like that, if you like seeing me suck out on aces to leave a winner, like the vlog. And subscribe and comment and blah blah blah, probably, and whatever. Bye.